All right, today we're going to pull back the curtain on something we all kind of take for granted. We're going on the secret journey of your medicine. Yep, from a tiny idea in a lab all the way to the shelf in your local pharmacy. Let's jump in.
I mean, seriously, think about it for a second. That little pill you pop for a headache, or that antibiotic you pick up, where did it come from? What did it have to go through to prove it was actually safe and effective enough for you to take?
Because at the end of the day, that is the one fundamental promise of any medicine. It's not about being perfectly harmless. Nothing is. It's about surviving this incredibly tough journey, a real gauntlet of tests, all to prove one thing, that the good it does far, far outweighs the bad.
And that journey starts with the most grueling part of it all, the clinical trial gauntlet. We're talking about a process that can usually take more than 10 years and cost, get this, over $1 billion. This is where a hopeful little chemical compound tries to earn the right to become a medicine you can trust.
This gauntlet is broken down into 4 main phases, and each phase asks a tougher and tougher question. First, is it safe? Then, does it even work? After that, is it any better than what we already have? And finally, what happens when people take it for years and years? Let's break them down.
First up, Phase I. This one is all about one thing, and one thing only: safety. We're not even trying to see if the drug works yet. Nope. A small group of healthy volunteers are given the drug, and the whole point is to find what's called the maximum tolerable dose. Basically, how much can a person take before the side effects get to be too much?
Okay, so if a drug makes it past Phase 1, it graduates to Phase 2. Now, for the very first time, we get to ask the big question, does it actually work? It's tested on a bigger group of people, this time people who actually have the condition it's supposed to treat. This is a huge hurdle, and honestly, this is the phase where most potential drugs fail. Their journey just stops right here.
So let's say a drug defies the odds and makes it through the high-stakes world of Phase 2. The next step is just a massive, massive scale-up. We go from maybe a couple hundred patients to, well, potentially thousands.
And that brings us to Phase 3. You can think of this as the final exam, the huge confirmation stage before a drug company can even dream of asking for approval. These are often multi-centric trials, which just means they're happening in different hospitals, sometimes all over the world. This is to make sure the drug works for all kinds of people with different backgrounds.
So, how do scientists make sure these results are legit and not just wishful thinking? Well, they use a brilliant tool called blinding. In a single-blind study, you, the patient, don't know if you're getting the real drug or a sugar pill. But the gold standard, that's the double-blind study. That's where neither you nor the doctor handing you the pill knows who's getting what. It's the absolute best way to remove bias and find out what the drug is really doing.
All right, once a drug has battled its way through those first 3 phases, it's finally ready to ask for permission to go public. It's time to face the gatekeepers.
You see, every country has its own regulatory body that has the final say. In the US, it's the famous FDA, the Food and Drug Administration. If you're in India, it's the CDSCO. These organizations are like the ultimate referees, looking at all the evidence to decide if a drug is ready for the public.
And all along, there's a mountain of paperwork happening in the background. Before any human testing even begins, a company has to file an investigational new drug application, the INDA. Then, after surviving all 3 phases, they submit the big one, the new drug application, or NDA. And that thing is just a massive collection of all the data for the authorities to comb through.
But here's something really important to remember. Even after a drug gets that green light and shows up in your pharmacy, its journey is not over. Not by a long shot. In fact, you could say the biggest test is just getting started. This next phase is all about watching and waiting.
This is Phase 4, or what's known as post-marketing surveillance. Now the drug is out in the real world, being used by potentially millions of people. This is the only way you can ever hope to spot those really, really rare side effects. You know, the kind that might only happen to one person in 20,000, or side effects that only show up after years and years of use.
And this whole idea of an ever-watchful eye has an official name, pharmacovigilance. It's really just the science of constantly monitoring, understanding, and hopefully preventing any problems with drugs that are already out there for us to use.
So, what does this system actually look like? Well, check out this flowchart of the process in India. If a doctor or even a patient reports a potential side effect, that report doesn't just sit in a file somewhere. It travels up a whole chain of command, all the way to a national level, and then it gets fed into global databases.
It's a huge, connected web designed to spot patterns and problems as fast as possible.
And these adverse reactions, they're not all the same. They get put into different categories to help make sense of them. For instance, a type A reaction is augmented. It's predictable and usually depends on the dose. But a type B is bizarre. That's something totally unpredictable, like a sudden allergy. You even have type D for delayed effects, which covers really serious things like the potential to cause birth defects. It's a whole system for keeping track.
So after all of that, we finally made it to the last step of the journey, that piece of paper that connects all this mind-boggling science directly to you, your prescription. Let's take a closer look.
A prescription is way more than just a doctor's note. It's a very precise legal document. That RX symbol you always see, that's called the superscription. The actual name and dose of the drug is the inscription. And the instructions for you, take 2 times a day with food, that's called the signa. Every single part is there for a reason.
And here's a quick but super important tip about prescriptions. Good, safe practice is to always use a leading 0 for doses less than 1, like writing 0.5 milligrams, but you should never use a trailing 0. So writing 5.0 instead of just 5 is a big no-no. Why? Because if that little decimal point gets missed, a 5 milligram dose could easily be misread as a 50 milligram dose. It's a tiny detail that prevents huge mistakes.
Now, what happens when you take more than one drug at a time? Well, sometimes it's simple addition. Their effects just add up, like 2 + 2 = 4. But other times, you get something called synergism. That's when the combined effect is way, way more powerful than you'd expect. It's like 2 + 2 suddenly equals 10. And that can be either really good or really, really bad.
And on the flip side, sometimes drugs can actually block each other. It's called antagonism. A physiological antagonist works by causing the opposite effect through a completely different path. But a pharmacological antagonist, that's when 2 drugs are literally competing for the exact same spot on a cell, kind of like 2 different keys trying to get into the same lock at the same time. So we've gone on the entire incredible journey. From a single molecule in a lab, through that brutal gauntlet of trials, past all the regulatory gatekeepers, and under that ever-watchful eye, all the way to your prescription. Knowing all this empowers you. So the next time you're handed that piece of paper, what questions are you going to ask?